The Joseph Family Blue Book. Between 1839 and 1841, members of the Joseph family of Montreal and Quebec City circulated a lively yet cryptic handwritten newsletter that combined family gossip and social commentary. The Joseph Family Blue Book is the oldest sequence of documents held by the Canadian Jewish Congress Charities Committee National Archives. 15 of these original newsletters, as well as a handful of other handwritten publications, can be found in the Joseph family records donated by the Wolfe sisters, Annette, Rosetta, and Esther, who are descended from the Joseph family through their mother. The Josephs were one of the first Jewish families to settle in Canada. Along with the Harts, to whom they were closely related by blood and marriage, they helped establish many of Quebec's most important early commercial and financial institutions, as well as its first synagogue. As described by historian Michael Brown, like others of Canada's pre-1900 Jewish elite, the Josephs were proudly British and staunchly patriotic. Family members took full part in the social life of the English-speaking community in Quebec and seemed to suffer no discrimination because of their faith. Although family patriarch Henry Joseph's brother, Judah, became a Roman Catholic, and some of Henry's grandchildren intermarried, the Josephs were remarkably faithful to their Jewish roots, despite the difficulties of practicing Judaism far from any sizable community. Who actually wrote the Blue Book? This requires some detection, as all the names used in this family newsletter are archly contrived nicknames. An early issue's first page reads, "The Blue Book is published every alternate Friday at the Près de Ville Library. All written communications are thankfully received." Henry Joseph and his wife Rachel had 13 children. Henry and 5 of his offspring were no longer alive by the time the Blue Book was written. By this time, son Abraham Joseph was living in Quebec City. Jacob Henry Joseph, Henry's oldest surviving son, was then living in Montreal with his mother, his brothers Jesse and Gershom, and sisters Rebecca, Sarah, and Esther. They lived at 8 Près de Ville Place, around the corner from the Shearith Israel Synagogue on Cheneville Street. It seems that the majority of the Blue Book text published at the Près de Ville Library was written by the young male members of the family, but certainly many of the contributions by correspondents have the sound of a female voice. Here is a sample of the Blue Book, dated March 5, 1841. This page has Hebrew writing, carefully lettered with the vowel marks inserted. Our text starts halfway down on the left-hand side, under the header Religious Intelligence. As usual, the writers have used a nickname for the subject of their article, and they refer to the synagogue as a church. Last Friday week, a grand ball was given by the owner of Belmont Place, and we are happy to say that although most of the Israelites in our city were invited, none but one weak-minded mortal attended, nor were we at all surprised at this, when we considered how truly religious the members of our church are. Mrs. Madcap, a lady who professes the Jewish religion, but merely professes it, went to this foolish display of understandings, yclept a ball, and as it is a true saying that ce n'est que le premier pas qui compte, she glories in having been, and laughs at the idea of the poor ignorant Israelites not attending. What cares she for the awful commandment, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. On a lighter note, we read below on this page the quip, "We wish all our readers a merry Purim, even such a one as a certain gentleman passed last year. We doubt much whether he has such a relish for real as for sham pain." Found alongside the Blue Book, the splendid Shilling appears to be a companion or rival publication. It was composed at a place the authors called Kennedyville, possibly the family's summer residence at St. Patrick. The date is given in Hebrew format, Tammuz the 18th, 56,000, which is equivalent to July 14th, 1840. In it we read, "Bad taste for a gentleman to light their cigars in a room where there are ladies, and to continue smoking several minutes before they go out, very unrefined. For brothers and sisters to reprove one another where presence of those who are not relations. For a lady to appear in the morning without a kerchief about the neck, no matter how warm. For a lady to boast of being frightened if she sees a horse coming or hears the report of a pistol." And in a rather plaintive letter to the editor we read, Is it not insulting to keep continually scolding, as it is termed, a certain lady, because she will not practice singing, after she has had so much money spent upon her, I believe that is the expression, who, when she does attempt to improve herself, cannot proceed on account of the laughter that is immediately raised against her by the same persons who have not the good sense to know better? Although most of the splendid shilling reflects upper-middle-class Victorian secular life, at the end there is a nod to the Jewish observance of the Sabbath. In the postscriptum we read, "Our Three Rivers correspondent has just informed us that the Duke of Dash arrived there yesterday and left today. Why will he travel on Saturday?" Many of the most evocative passages in the Blue Book are found in an issue devoted entirely to the description of a wedding, written in late January 1842. It is titled "The Wedding Day." The long-talked-of, long-wished-for 4th of January at length come. As the sun rose with unusual splendor and shone upon the innumerable strangers, both ladies and gentlemen, who had come a great distance, some on foot, some in carriages, at an inclement season of the year, to witness the noose-tying of a couple of their dearly beloved friends. This is followed by descriptions of several ladies' dresses, until midway down the left column of the following page we read, "And last but not least, the bride. The bridegroom said that her ladyship looked heavenly, and we agree with him. Her ladyship wore a splendid white cashmere dress, trimmed with the richest of blonde and chenille. Her headdress was composed of an elegant blonde scarf, tastefully entwined with orange blossoms. Her gloves were of French kid, embroidered in silver, white satin scarf. In her pretty hand her ladyship held a magnificent lace handkerchief, trimmed in richest Brussels lace. The bride's ornaments were topaz and gold." And now that we have attempted to describe the lady's dress, let us proceed. The impressive ceremony was well performed by the Reverend Mr. Precision, and when we considered that in a couple of hours the happy bride was about to leave her home and relations to cross the broad Atlantic, the ceremony was awful indeed. The narrative goes on to describe a daring departure by the bride, bridegroom, and some of the party via 2 canoes on the not yet frozen St. Lawrence River, from where the couple headed to New York and then to England. The rest of the party later sat down to a dinner. A page later, the wedding account ends with the wish, "May she, when time has sunk him into years, love her old man and cherish his grey hair, nor he perceive her charms though age decay, but think each happy sun his bridal day." The cryptic nature of the Blue Book can inspire modern readers to turn detective. Because the date of the wedding is given, it's possible to deduce the identities of the people being described. In Anne Joseph's book Heritage of a Patriarch, we discover that on January 4th, 1842, Theodore Hart, son of Benjamin Hart, and a cousin of the Montreal Josephs, married Frances Michael David, daughter of the late Samuel David and the late Sarah Hart David. However, their story has a sad ending. On October 30th, 1842, Harleen Sarah Hart, their first child, was born, but the baby died on the 24th of December at the age of 8 weeks. On January 12th, 1844, Fanny Augusta Hart, the second child of Theodore and Frances, was born. On February 28th, 1844, Frances Michael David Hart died in Montreal at the age of 23, after only 25 months of marriage, when her second baby was 6 weeks old. The second daughter died on the 10th of October at the age of 9 months. Abraham Joseph wrote of his cousin Frances and her death in his diary. "Poor Fanny was a great favorite of mine, one I used to look forward to as my intended wife. I was present at the wedding on 4th of January 1842, and sad indeed has been her fate. She was an invalid from her marriage to her decease." Abraham Joseph married Frances's younger sister Sophie and raised a large family with her in Quebec City. Theodore Hart remarried a year and a half later with Mary Kent Bradbury of Boston, and they eventually had 4 children. His second wife and her children were not Jewish, and he is buried in Montreal's Protestant cemetery. The documents which you have just seen come from the Joseph and Wolfe family collection at the Canadian Jewish Congress Charities Committee National Archives. The family photographs which accompany this presentation come from Anne Joseph's collection of research into the Joseph family history.